How's it going, guys? Welcome back into another video, and today is another movie review that I am so incredibly excited to talk about, because if you follow me on Letterboxd, you follow me on social media, you kind of check out my reviews early, which you can find on all of my social media platforms. You know, I've been on a heater lately. I've seen a lot of really awesome films that I have really enjoyed, and today we were talking about one of the films that I immensely, extremely enjoyed, which made me so happy because I had seen negative reviews. I was very nervous going in, but for me to come out really liking this made me happy because I was so excited to see this film from one of my favorite directors. I love Wes Anderson. He is absolutely incredible. Today we are talking about The French Dispatch. I am so excited to talk about this film. I really enjoyed it, and it may hit home for me more than others because this is a Wes Anderson film, and it is Wes Anderson at his finest. It is Wes Anderson at the core, and that is not for everyone because everyone doesn't know Wes Anderson. Everyone doesn't watch all of Wes Anderson, so fair warning before you go in. This is Wes Anderson to a T. This is Wes Anderson to his peak. But it's great. But I think without further ado, let's just kind of get into the review. This is a beautiful film, visually stunning. The cinematography is absolutely incredible, and you know, going in to a Wes Anderson film that's going to be incredibly well shot. The cinematography is always going to be top notch because Wes Anderson has a very particular eye for shot composition and for blocking movement in shot. And he has a way of doing that I don't think I have seen from any other director. He has a very unique style, very unique sense of movement and placement within a shot that really is incredible, and it is something to marvel at. You know, a lot of the directors that I love are I love them for their own ways, and they're unique in their own ways. But Wes Anderson, who is in my top 5 favorite directors, he's a different breed in the best ways. He paints each shot like it is a piece of art. Each different shot, each different second that we see throughout a film is like a piece of art, and this film is no different. It is an extremely beautiful film. It is incredibly well shot, and that's one of the great things about it is that, and you know that going in, which I really liked. It's Wes Anderson at his finest. I have not updated my ranking of Wes Anderson films. I don't think I'm gonna make a video ranking his filmography. I haven't seen all of his films. Well, that's not true. The only one I haven't seen is Isle of Dogs. But I don't think I'm gonna make a video for that. I will be doing that on my podcast though, with a good friend of mine, Zach Pope. I think we're going to talk about maybe our top 3, top 5 favorite Wes Anderson films while we break down The French Dispatch, as well as Last Night in Soho, which I'm incredibly excited to talk about as well. Check out the podcast. Sorry, little plug. But this is Anderson at his finest. You can tell that he has transcended having to make films a certain way, which he never did. He never made films a certain way. He never fell into a mold. But this feels the most Wes Anderson of any film that he has made. Maybe the Grand Budapest Hotel competes with that, but this is really, it's Wes Anderson at his finest. This one may resonate a little bit more with me than other people because this at its core is a beautiful love letter and ode to journalism, the journalists and storytelling. So this may not resonate to everyone. It resonated to me because I am a journalist. That's what I got my degree in. That is what I studied in college, and that's what I do, is tell stories. So I really loved that beautiful ode to that. That may not resonate with everyone, but for me, that left a lasting mark because he did show a kind of an accurate portrayal of print journalism, and just I really liked that. I liked that this was the route that he took, and this certain, just kind of ode in love letter, because every one of his films is a love letter to something. And this was a love letter to journalism, which I really, really loved. It's no secret, any Wes Anderson film has a kick-ass ensemble, absolutely brilliant performances. Same thing here across the board. Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Benicio del Toro, Timothée Chalamet, Frances McDormand, Adrien Brody, Jeffrey Wright, just to name a few of them. There's a bunch of great cameos as well. Owen Wilson, Edward Norton, and a bunch of others. But I hate to say it, but I don't. Because this is who everyone's gushing about because of who he is. But Timothée Chalamet, I think, really was one of, if not the best performance in this film. I think, and I'm going to talk about the storytelling, how the story is told later, but he is the main character of the middle story with Frances McDormand. I think that they have great chemistry, but I think he had fun making this film. And you can tell because he fully dove into the quirky nature of the role, quirky nature of how Wes Anderson makes films, and he made it his own, and he did it in such a way that was so excellent. He was the standout of this film for me, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I already kind of teased this story structure. Anderson, he structures a lot of his films in chapter-based settings, and this one's a little bit different because it's more of an anthology where it's not the same story, it's 3 different stories. But I think that was very interesting, a very interesting way of composing a film. Because I haven't, there's a lot of anthology films out there, but to do it from the point of view of stories that were written in a magazine, like we were reading this magazine, The French Dispatch, was very fascinating to me. I really like that that's the approach he took. I think it was absolutely fantastic, and it kept me invested and intrigued, and it kept me paying attention, because ever so often, if you're in a movie theater, you're watching a film, you're in a story, you may tend to doze off, you may tend to get distracted and things like that. Each one of these, it was a quick change of setting to another story that you're like, okay, little bite-sized stories, and so it never got dull is I think the point I'm trying to get to. It never got dull, it never lost my focus. I was always locked in, which is interesting because of one of the negatives that I'll talk about later, a little bit of the pacing. The film felt like it went a lot longer than the runtime, but that didn't take away from me fully investing in the stories, and that all has to do with the story structure and the bite-sized nature of these stories. Nothing was ever too long. We never lingered on a story that got too repetitive. It was always incredibly well structured. Everything technical here is great. Set design, costume design, sound design, all the designs, like I like to say. The score is awesome. I like the soundtrack as well. But that's what we come to expect. I literally wrote it in my notebook, but that's what he does best. Wes Anderson's attention to detail is incredible. That's why his films are so good, and that's why he's one of the best directors working in Hollywood today, because of the attention to detail, especially with the technical aspects. If it's not for those technical aspects, you don't have a film. If it's not for cinematography, set design, sound design, costumes, editing, if it's not for those technical categories, you do not have a film. And Wes Anderson treats them just as important as the writing and the performances and the direction, which I love and I respect. And here, of course, again, they are fantastic. All the technical aspects are just so well done. Now with the good comes the bad. I do have a few negatives that I'm going to get into. It's hard. I don't want to really consider this a negative, but I do have to do it justice. There really is not any emotional attachment to the characters. Again, it's an anthology of short stories, so therefore you're not really ever going to get invested in the characters. So I understand that, and I'm not going to really ding the writing for that, but I did have to mention it if you're going in and you don't know what it's about. You're probably not going to get emotionally invested to these characters. I just want to warn you before you go in. There is not a lot of emotional investment to be had. And there is some pacing. So the runtime was shorter than like The Last Night in Soho, which I saw the night before. But it felt incredibly longer. And I don't know if that's just the fact that I was really completely locked in or the nature of the stories. I don't really know why. It just felt very long. So I did have a little bit of issue with the pace, but in the end, it wasn't anything so bad that I was like looking at my watch, because I never did look down at my watch. I was completely invested in paying attention. But I was like, okay, when are we going to wrap up? This is kind of long. So there were some pacing issues. You may not like that. Look, if you are a Wes Anderson fan like I am, you're going to love this film. You are. It's Wes Anderson at his finest. I truly, truly believe that. But if you don't know Wes Anderson, this may not be the best film to start on. This is a film for hardcore Wes Anderson fans that know what you're getting and know the style. So I will warn you, if you've never seen a Wes Anderson film, this might not be the one for you. Start with Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Royal Tenenbaums, something like that, something a little more easier to consume. And then come to this. Because this is peak Anderson, not just in filmmaking form, but also quirky nature that he is. Which, for Wes Anderson fans, is great. I really enjoy this film. And I was really nervous going in because I had heard and seen the reviews that were not completely positive. Now, I have seen plenty of positive reviews, but I didn't see any that were overwhelmingly positive. So I did come into it a little hesitant, but I'm very happy to say I truly, truly enjoyed this film from Wes Anderson. So I think without further ado, let's get into the point breakdown. So I'm going to give entertainment 14 out of 15. Thoroughly entertained throughout, completely locked in, didn't have any problem with that. Performances, 14 out of 15. Writing, 14 out of 15. I'm going to give direction a 10 out of 10. Emotion, an 8 out of 10. That's the category that's getting the most dinged. Cinematography, 10 out of 10. Sound, 5 out of 5. Score, 5 out of 5. I gave pacing 4 out of 5. A rewatchability of 5 out of 5 and an automatic 5 out of 5 points. That means if you did the math, I gave The French Dispatch a 94 out of 100. It falls in my top 10 of the year, which is awesome because I really wanted to love this film, and I'm so glad I did. Again, fair warning, there's not a lot of emotional attachment to the characters. There may be a little bit of pacing issues, and if you've never seen a Wes Anderson movie, I don't think you're going to like it. But for Wes Anderson fans, you're in for a treat. It is absolutely fantastic. I want you all to go down below in the comments and let me know, what did you think of The French Dispatch? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know why. I want to hear your thoughts. I know it's not a divisive movie. There's not people arguing over it, but it's divisive in there is a spectrum of how people feel about it. So I want you to go down below. I want you to let me know what you think. I want to hear about it. Again, I'm going to plug the podcast this Wednesday. I'm joined by my dear friend Zach Pope. We are going to be talking about The French Dispatch. We are also going to be talking about Last Night in Soho. We're going to be doing reviews of both those movies. So if you want to hear my reviews on The Last Night in Soho, you got to go to the podcast because I'm not doing a video review for it. And we may also rank our top 3 or top 5 favorite Wes Anderson films. I'm still figuring it out. I got to write down my notes, but go check out the podcast. Go check out last week's podcast with Chris talking about Dune. We did over an hour-long review of Dune. Please go check out that as well. Thank you all for listening to the podcast. It really does mean the world. And thank you all for subscribing if you have not already and you like what you see. Please consider subscribing. It really does mean the absolute world. And for everyone else that is still subscribed and is still here, it really does mean the absolute world. But I want to thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you go like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Go check out the podcast. The link's in the description. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video.